Alright, so we're going to be talking about the Viltrox 85mm f1.8. How do I feel about it? And welcome to the new studio setup, still in working progress. The audio might be a bit tight, but don't worry, we'll get there. Everything will be very nice very soon. So, as always, this review is non-scientific. This is just my thoughts and feelings. I usually like to use street photography as a gauge of how do I like the lens. Is it something that I am comfortable and do I enjoy using? Because if I am comfortable and I enjoy using and I enjoy the results, then chances are that at a wedding, at an event, somewhere where it really counts to get the shot, I'm more likely to enjoy that process. My success rate will be a lot higher. So this is why I use street photography to gauge. Bear in mind, there's also a Mark II version of this lens, which is a lot smaller, so I'll be touching upon that as well. As always, with most of my reviews, you'll also get the raw files link down below. Along that, you're also gonna get the timestamps so you can actually skip to the bit that you wanna see. Let's get into it. Now, for actual street photography, it's been quite a shame because due to COVID, I haven't been able to actually give this lens a proper shot, and this is why that it's taken such a long time to make this review. Right now, I'm going to share with you a few shots on my first day, just doing some general street photography out in London, seeing what I can capture. Man, I've just been squatting in this place for like a good 10 minutes, just so I can get someone in a Boris bike going through this scene right here, because it's red and I like the fact that a Boris bike is red. So yeah, finally got it. You can't see it right now, but I'll put it on the screen. Sometimes you're lucky and you just get the shot that you're looking for and it just works out perfectly, but lately with my street photography I'm trying to avoid the whole CCTV look and just be very particular in what I'm trying to shoot. So the example back there was there was loads of elements of red or red elements, whatever you want. My brain's not functioning today. I've had like 3 coffees and blah. But anyway, having said that, lots of red in the shot, which I really like. So it only made sense if someone walked past with a Boris bike. Yes, in London we call them Boris bikes. We don't actually call them Santander bikes. So I finally got it because I saw one go past and I was like, that would make way more sense. Red with the red, it just feels intentional. At the same time, it's like serendipity, so that's to me what makes a winning shot, and finally got it. But man, sometimes you do just have to be patient and make sure that you stick at it. Even if people kind of walk past and be like, man, this guy's like squatting in there with his camera, what is he up to? Just keep going. Just keep going, keep squatting with your camera, don't worry. I have to say, this lens is pretty good, pretty sharp. I'm not that comfortable using this lens for street photography. As you know, I love the 56mm. That's my personal favorite for street photography because you get that compression and you get that separation, but it's not too, you're not zooming in too much to someone. It's not too invasive. I felt like this was a bit too invasive for my style of shooting, so I had to kind of step back, shoot from stuff a lot more from afar, like I'm in some kind of safari, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed it. The only downside that I noticed straight away was there was no aperture ring. And someone that's invested in the Fuji system and buys a lens for the Fuji system is that you kind of expect to have an aperture ring. It's kind of why you got into the Fuji system, or part of the reason what comes with the Fuji system. So when you're shooting, sometimes if it gets too bright or the light keeps changing, I personally like to change the aperture ring to change my exposure as I'm shooting and seeing what's happening in the viewfinder. I find that this is super quick. My hand is literally on the lens anyway, so rather than using the rear command dial, I just like to change the aperture. It's just personally how I shoot, and it's just personally how I feel about it. I feel like if you're gonna make a lens with the Fuji system, you should include an aperture ring. Now I understand that in terms of engineering and designing a lens, that this could perhaps be, it could be a problem. It might not have been what this lens is today. It could have been a bit too big, and I understand that, but just personally for myself, I would love to have an aperture ring. The 90mm has an aperture ring, so yeah. Speaking of the 90mm f2 by Fujifilm, if you'd like to see a good comparison video about that, I'd recommend checking out Gajin. I'm gonna link his video down below. He does a nice contrast between the two lenses and shows you the pros and cons and gives you a bit more information about that. Anyway, let's dive in a bit more about this lens from my personal experience. Overall, day one, I really enjoyed the photos that I took. I feel like it was a lot more of me warming up than the lens being a barrier for my creative vision. I really enjoyed the photos of the two men having some coffee. I feel like getting that nice intimate shot is something that was very fulfilling, and yeah, the lens did a good job. Came out nice and sharp, had no issues. And now we're gonna move on to day two. All right, welcome back everyone. This is day two of shooting with the Viltrox, and we have Chloe.
Hello.
So it's been a while, but she's back as well, and today is a lot nicer. It's actually sunny, it's warm, and yeah, we're gonna try and do some street photos, and obviously since we have lovely Chloe, we can try and take some nice shots and see how this lens performs. And you'll be testing the lens too, right?
Oh yeah.
Because I would like your opinion on it too, because you're a big fan of the 56.
Yeah, well, I took that for my protest shots and it was definitely quite a treat using it. Definitely requires a bit of, I don't know, changing how you shoot, just given the focal length and stuff. But
yeah.
The results are quite magical, I think.
Well, this is really interesting. There's a protest behind us and we did not know it was happening today. Great opportunity for the lens, I suppose. Well, this is spontaneous. We did not expect this at all.
We did not plan this at all, but hey.
I mean, best time to test out a lens, I suppose, and be part of a great course, so I'm all for it. Round two. So, from that vlog, you can see that we bumped into a Black Lives Matter protest, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to compare and contrast this lens with the 56mm f1.2 by Fujifilm. Now you might be wondering, why would you want to compare it to that lens? It's fairly different, and I'll explain why I want to. So when I was thinking about reviewing this lens, I actually asked you guys, what do you want to know about this lens? And if there's any particular questions, please let me know. And surprisingly, more than a few times, a few people are asking this lens compared to the 56. And I thought that was quite interesting. And I thought the reason why people might be asking that is because I rave about the 56 a lot as my favorite street photography lens. It's very unconventional. It's not something that someone would pick up. So for someone like me that loves this lens for street photography, how would I feel about this lens for street photography? And I'm just gonna say right off the bat, I wouldn't really use this lens for street photography, the Viltrox. The main reason why is because the weight. This feels light, despite the size being one of the larger Fuji primes. It's only about maybe a couple of centimeters taller, and in terms of thickness, slightly thicker. I mean, I'll let you guys see right here. Can you bloody zoom in? Yeah, so zoom. Anyway, it feels like triple the weight. It feels double or triple the weight. Now, having said that, the 56mm has a lot of soul, and a lot of you know that, and that's the reason why I use that lens. So rather than just taking a brick wall test or a same portrait, why don't we see if these photos have the same amount of soul as well? I think that would give you guys a lot more value and seeing, can you get some really nice magical shots with this lens? Overall, I'm very pleased with what the Viltrox produced. This is one of Chloe's favorite lenses for documenting and doing any kind of events. Their extra reach just creates that nice bit of compression that I don't think you can get with any other lenses. Now, granted, the 90mm could probably do a better job because of the micro contrast and so on and so forth, but if you're on a budget and you want a nice long telephoto lens for events and it's a prime, I don't think you can go wrong. And this has me thinking, with the Mark II, if it's definitely smaller, I think that could definitely get rid of some barriers. Now, it doesn't have an aperture ring from what I've seen, and I would really love to test that lens, but if you can find a Mark I on resale and it's at a really good price, I'll list the price here, which I think is what you should be looking for. I think it's a viable option, and you should definitely, you know, not overlook it if you're looking to do some cool events. So yes, this definitely produces good magic, good quality, good character. me and Chloe were very pleased with the photos, and it definitely has something unique to it. And for being a third-party lens, I'm pretty happy. Now onto the video side of things. Viltrox has been making a lot of noise with their new line of prime lenses for Fujifilm because the autofocus seems to be significantly better. Now I have to say, I was pretty impressed. Straight up front, this lens is better for autofocus than the 56. Granted, of course, it's a newer lens, different motors, but due to it being a telephoto lens, it's still, still quite far away from your subject, so you're still gonna get weird hunting, and it's just gonna keep slipping from the face. From the B-roll sequence that you saw in the intro, it looks really good, but because I shot 100 frames per second, that 1 second will last 4 seconds. So I'm able to cut and maneuver pretty well.
All right, so I'm hoping that I put together a decent B-roll sequence, but I have to be honest, I just don't like filming with this. And to be honest, it's not really practical to film handheld with a 85mm at f1.8. Even with a nice sturdy rig like this, it's not practical, and I'm someone who, I think I do quite well shooting handheld. I don't know. The reason why the 56 for me is really good for filmmaking handheld is because it's so small, you can comfortably maneuver it. This thing is a bit chunky, so I don't know. These are just raw. I'm using it as we're going along with my thoughts and feelings, so maybe when we get back to the studio I can give you a bit more of a proper reflection on how I feel. But right now, it's a very special lens. You have to use it for very special shots. But I know a lot of you might be asking this question, how does it work for video? So number one, it's not practical. Number two, it's okay, but if you can do it, the images do look pretty nice.
From seeing my first initial impressions using this lens for video, you can probably see there's quite a contrast to how I'm feeling right now and how I was feeling back then. And that's purely to do with me having time to sit down, reflect, and think about why would I use this lens, and what I'm applying it for is not, strictly speaking, what I would really do for a product or a real shoot. I would use multiple lenses, and this lens would probably be for very special shots. I shot that whole sequence just with this lens, which granted will give issues. And overall the product seems pretty good in my opinion. I'm personally quite happy. Although I still feel the same way about not having an aperture ring. I feel my muscle memory is still there because I shoot with the Fuji system. I love shooting with the Fuji system. So I'm not drawn to this lens. When I open my camera drawer, it's not the first lens that I'm like excited to pull out or I'm going to use this today. I kind of have to have a purpose when I use this lens. And I think that's a good way to conclude this video. This lens is amazing for special shots. If you're on a budget and you want to kind of have the extra reach, you will get magical shots. You will get more than what you pay for with this lens. I can definitely guarantee that. And I'm excited to see what the Mark II does, because if it's lighter, it definitely takes away a barrier and allows you to shoot with it for longer. And I'm very grateful that I was asked to review this lens. I've never had that before. I've been on YouTube for a while now, so it feels nice for someone to ask for my opinion and see how I feel about stuff. So yeah, leave a comment down below if you have any questions. Let me know what you want to know about this lens and I'll do my best to reply to you. And yeah, consider subscribing. I make a lot of videos like this video, do a lot of tutorial, street photography, and yeah, catch you around. See you later.